Greetings. You're tuning in to another edition of the Street Peace Coalition on Chicago Cable, Channel 21, CAN TV, live call-in show. If you're tuning in to us, we hope you'll stay put and engage with us in a discussion of violence, particularly violence in the black community. What are its root causes? What are its effects? And what are the best responses and solutions to the dilemma, the trauma, the ongoing chronic trauma of violence in the black community. I am Minister Michael Muhammad, co-founder of the Street Peace Coalition. We are a grassroots, community-based violence intervention prevention organization. We are a completely self-resourced organization, meaning that we are a group primarily of men who have decided to come together and pool our small resources, whatever they may be, to try to have a positive impact, community by community, block by block, on violence. And so our model is a little different from most other violence prevention and intervention organizations. Our technique, our strategy is a little different, and we believe that it will be a little more effective than the traditional model, which we call ambulance chasing. And that ambulance chasing model means that we hear about a shooting, or a group or an individual may monitor traffic via a scanner or news feed, or sources on the ground that may report acts of violence, particularly gun violence or murder, and then respond after the fact with several methodologies, one being, of course, passing out flyers in the community to look for the shooter, or holding a prayer vigil at the site of the shooting, or having some form of a rally in response to the shooting, a march or a rally in response to the shooting. And so these methods are good for those who need to do something and don't really know what else to do. But the fact of the matter is, they do very little, if anything at all, to deter violence in the black community. They are reactionary methods, and there is no possibility, or a very low probability, of them having any impact on shooters, having any influence on those individuals in the community, old or young, quote unquote, who have a mind to shoot senselessly, kill randomly, or out of some sense of vendetta. And so we are working with a model that's a little different, that I will not articulate on air, but we believe our model has proven itself to be a little more effective. And so no one organization has an absolute silver bullet for violence in Chicago, because violence in Chicago, like other major urban centers in America, is a very, very, very complex reality. It is not something that has grown without encouragement, without stimulation, without provocation. There are so many dynamics involved with violence in black communities that it would be unrealistic for anybody to tell you that in the current social structure there is going to be any one silver bullet that will work on violence as it is right now, with the exception of the most complicated answer to all of this black on black violence, and that is the need for black people to come into a proper and thorough and adequate re-education about themselves that would nurture, engender, and foster in us as a people the deep sense of respect for life that comes from the kind of nurturing education, or what I call habilitation, that makes one fall so deeply in love with oneself that you have a automatic and organic transference of that sense of love toward everybody who shares the same heritage as you do. And from that deep abiding love of yourself, then you start to eliminate many of the social ills and social diseases that stem from a mind that has grown depraved of proper nurturing, proper love, proper knowledge of self, proper connection to the things about yourself that make you oh so valuable, oh so precious, oh so important to the onward march of the human family and society at large. I see we have a caller. We'll take the caller. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Talk a little bit louder, though.
Okay. My name is James. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Rod Manuel, Andre Holmes, Eddie Johnson, and the media, they ain't doing no good. And then they always talk about they protesting, right? And then the media is probably the problem. And every time when they talk about, they had like Spike Lee and them, and they ain't did no good, and they still fighting. And my name is James. The media is probably the problem. And Andre Holmes, he probably the problem too. And Eddie Johnson, and Father Flater, and Rod Man, they probably the problem. You know, every time when they get in front of the media, they talk about they gonna do this and that. And then the next day, like 3 or 4 days, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Now, okay, every time when they get in front of the media, and they talk about they gonna stop the violence, people turning their guns in. And what do you hear the next day? More violence and more shooting.
Yes. Thank you, caller.
Okay, my name is James.
All right, James. Thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate you tuning in. We hope you'll tune in every Monday with us at 5:30. James makes a interesting comment. James's opinion is that Superintendent Eddie Jones, he mentioned Brother Holmes, Andre Holmes, who many of you may see on television, on camera, at shootings all over the city. He responds to the shootings. And he is famous for responding to the shootings, standing with the family, distributing flyers throughout that immediate community in a search to find the shooter. And so what I will say about that is, first, with Brother Holmes. Brother Holmes, I'm not sure of what motivated him to begin those efforts, but I'm in favor of anybody who does good based upon what they know. But sometimes what we know is inadequate. sometimes the formula we use to solve a problem is inadequate for the nature of the problem. What am I saying? I'm saying that if we have a calculus level problem, then we cannot use simple form multiplication to solve the problem. And the problem of violence and murder is a advanced calculus level problem. And so some of us only know simple multiplication solutions to this complex problem. And so what we do then makes us feel good. It assuages our sense of conscience. It puts some balm on our sense of collective responsibility or collective guilt about knowing we should do something to contribute to a solution, but in fact it does not contribute to the solution. And so what has happened to most of us in America through the dumbing down process is that we actually believe that law enforcement is either capable or intends to solve violence in the black community. And that is where we make a very, very, very critical mistake. That is totally erroneous. That's a very erroneous assumption. So Mr. Holmes is doing what he knows to do. But in my opinion, Mr. Holmes would be more effective by distancing himself from this police persona that he portrays frequently in the community. But maybe he has an unexpressed desire to be a part of law enforcement. I don't know. I don't know Mr. Holmes well. I met him once where I offered him some help on a particular situation. He attended a violence prevention event we sponsored. But other than that, I really don't know Mr. Holmes or his motives. Now, the superintendent, on the other hand, while he is a black man from the south side of Chicago, we should not fall asleep because he was selected for a purpose by City Hall. City Hall had a problem it needed to solve. And even though City Hall, by ordinance and rule, went through a process to recruit, screen, and select a superintendent by a thorough vetting process, at the end of that process, the top viable 3 candidates, I believe it was, were still undesirable by City Hall. And so City Hall, particularly the mayor's office, decided to circumvent the law, to violate the law, to break the law, and use a highly dictatorial selection of Mr. Eddie Johnson. So what I would say to those who want to understand that, what was City Hall trying to achieve? It was trying to calm down black outrage, black uproar that resulted in the shutting down of one of the most lucrative strips of real estate in the United States of America, the Magnificent Mall, of which we were part of spearheading the organization and implementation of that shutdown. So now, Mr. Eddie Johnson, while he is from our community, we should spend a little time looking at his background, looking at his track record. What kind of police officer was he? What kind of supervisor was he? How many shootings did he sign off on? How many complaints were lodged against him? How many situations of brutality, of overstep of authority and power by officers in his command did he give his consent to? What is his disposition with regard? Is he more blue than black? And if he's more blue than black, no matter how much we love seeing his black face, in his heart, if his veins are pumping blue, then we have a problem. And evidently, we still have a problem because nothing has changed on the police department. The culture of the Chicago Police Department has traditionally and remains a very, very, very racist culture where black people are viewed as third-class citizens. We're not even second-class citizens. We are viewed as disposable. We are viewed as an acceptable object of abuse and disabuse, torture and terrorization by our own police. And when I say our own police, I mean that we pay taxes in this city too. We pay higher taxes in many ways than any other community, but we get less respect by law enforcement. So it is ours in that sense. It is not ours in the sense that it reflects our culture, our needs, our desires, our aspirations, and it respects us. So I want to be clear on that. So look, when we do our work as the Street Peace Coalition, we form no relationships with the police other than that relationship of respect. When we engage with our brothers and sisters out there in what we call street life, we engage them with an honest relationship. We do not share information with the police because we know the police, by and large, means our people no good. And in fact, I'll go one step further. It is not uncommon that the police know who's selling drugs, who's got the guns, where the stash house is, who the shot callers are, etc., etc., etc. They don't ride through the neighborhood and not know where they are. They don't come in a neighborhood and not know where the trouble is. There is a reason they ride by trouble. There is a reason that when you see a big bust on the television, that is highly engineered. That is highly planned out. That is not a randomized event. Okay? So just like guns in the community is not a randomized event. You probably have more than 1,000 guns that come in the community every year just from freight shipments. Think about that. Now, if you know anything about how freight cars work or the train system works, those cars are sealed or double sealed. They have seals on them. They have all kind of devices or tracking mechanism so that when that shipment arrives from point A to point B, you can locate a given person's cargo where it is in that train of trailers on that train. And so if that seal is broken, number one, it's most train yards when a train is being put together and at certain stages, the critical stages, the train is monitored under video surveillance. And when that seal is broken, you have to have what's called a manifest. You have to have some kind of manifest that shows you what cargo is in what train. So if a train can be, I don't know if it's 50 or 100 cars in length, I forget the exact number, but let's just say it's 50. If there are 50 cars on a train that has been built for transportation, how would I know if I'm a gangbanger and I stumble on the train yard? I go jump the fence and enter a train yard. Well, there's surveillance coming in and going out, right? So am I not on camera? If I make it to the train, to the train cars, how do I know as a little guy on the block in the neighborhood trying to cause trouble, how do I know which train car to go to? Think about it. So when you hear that guns are being stolen from trains, which is reported randomly in the news every now and then, they give a report so it doesn't look like they're just totally ignoring it, right? Or that they're not involved. right? So when you hear those reports, how would some gangbangers know what train car to go to grab some guns, to grab crates of guns? Every summer, as we move through the neighborhood, every summer we talk to somebody involved in the streets that tells us, yeah, we went out in the alley late last night and it was a huge duffel bag full of guns just sitting in the alley. Or yeah, it was a big crate full of guns sitting on the end of the block out of nowhere. Or yeah, somebody rolled up in a van and they pulled a container out full of guns and they pulled off. Well, who do you think is doing this? You can't blame this on some little gangbanger in the neighborhood who really has no sense of direction or sense of purpose. This is a bigger thing going on that is contributing to the violence in the black community. When we see all of these guns proliferating the black community, where you have teenagers, where you have underage minors that have access to weapons, high-powered, technologically advanced weapons, even though they don't know how to use them. How do you think that's happening? You think that they are smart enough to know where to go to get these weapons on their own? No. There's a hidden hand involved in the violence in the community. But, of course, most of us know that this is a hard truth. And our minds, our hearts, our spirits are not prepared to deal with the hard truths of violence in the black community. So when you look at passing out flyers, when you look at a prayer vigil, when you look at a rally, when you look at these band-aid kind of reactionary solutions, oh boy, we're really wasting our time if we think we're really going to resolve the violence. And so we've only got a few minutes left. So I want you to think about what I'm saying. I want you to understand that, as I said last week, violence is natural to America. It's native to the United States of America and the history of this formal country. And when you look at how that tradition affects black people in particular, you're talking about the result of a very skillful social engineering process that makes me vulnerable to the kind of lifestyle that would make me a tool of evil, that makes me vulnerable to expressions of violence and murder as a routine matter of recourse and lifestyle at the end result of a process of dumbing down, miseducation, a lack of proper nurturing and human development. So there's so many factors that go in. If we don't start to dissect the root causes of violence, then bringing in the National Guard, bringing in more. Look, we're bringing in police. Do you know that we just got, I don't know, what was it, 500 million or more, almost $1 billion in taxes, I think, going up property taxes, all just for police and fire? But the police and fire can't stop the violence. We're paying for the incompetence of our city leadership, who are raping the city coffers and covering it over by the misfortune of ignorant poor people in the black community who are preying on each other. But it's all engineered so that we can be the scapegoat for the greed and incompetence of people who need to cover their tracks because they're failing as leadership to come up with viable solutions for creating a more equitable and fair and healthy and functional society. And so I want to thank everybody who tuned into us this afternoon here at the Street Peace Coalition on Chicago Cable Channel 21. We hope you'll tune in with us again next week with the Street Peace Coalition. You can reach us at the streetpeacecoalition.weebly.com. You can also reach us on Facebook at facebook.com, the Street Peace Coalition. Drop us a line. We love to hear from you, and more importantly, we love for you to get involved in some type of way. Thank you, and God bless.